and this sounds stupid, but just consistency, like making sure, like having a calendar reminder or whatever. Hey, this time we're going to farm for guests. At this time, I'm going to make sure that I've got this long allotted to record, allowing time for you to get it done. Starting a podcast is going to be the easiest way to help people know who you are, what you're about, your products and services. I think there's just so much information that you can glean from just sitting down and doing this. We are a strong and vibrant community, and I want to make a mark, man. I want to leave this community better than I found it.
All right, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Welcome back to another episode of the Voices of Arkansas. And this is episode number 4, actually a first for me of bringing on a guest that this is actually our first time meeting. So this is actually pretty interesting.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, we got Leo in the studio. Dude, just give a quick background of who you are, what you do, that type of stuff.
Leo Cummings III, born and raised Conwegian. Been here my entire life. Worked for the Chamber of Commerce. Been there for about 9 years. I have 2 amazing little girls, 7 and 9. I podcast. I've been podcasting for some time. I enjoy it. Bourbon enthusiast, sneakerhead. That's a quick summation of me.
Yeah, there you go. So, dude, I've been listening to a lot of your podcasts, and obviously I want to dive into a lot of that stuff, like the chamber and podcasting, because I think podcasting has been around for a long time, but it's like I feel like over the last couple of years it's gotten really big with like Joe Rogan and like these people that are popping up, so it's more mainstream. But one thing that you do on your podcast is you start off with a pet peeve and a praise. So
that's right.
What would you give as your pet peeve?
My pet peeve. The holidays is a time that people are supposed to be like happy and joyful, and thankful. And I feel like, I've been doing some shopping, like outside of my house shopping, and just the general attitude of folks is not one of thankfulness. You watch lots of TV shows and people are like grumpy around the holidays, and it's like that's what I'm actually finding to be the case. So I find that very annoying, right? I don't know. It's just like this is a time where it's very easy to be thankful for all the things. It's ending a year, thankful to end another year, and that's just not the case from what I'm seeing a lot of folks out there.
Yeah, it's funny. I was literally thinking about asking this question, as I was thinking the same thing of like holidays are supposed to be, obviously like everyone's supposed to be happy and things like that, but I get it at the same time because there's just so many like mad people that they like make each other mad, and then like everyone's just like, I'm guilty of last minute Christmas shopping, so the tensions of that probably doesn't help.
That's right.
So what would you give as your praise along those lines?
As my praise, man, I think I'm gonna say family. It's been a weird year for me. Lost a few family members and a few friends, and I think I'm just thankful for the relationships that I have with the family, and just thankful for the people in my life, right? I think everyone needs a support system around them, a village, if you will. So I'm thankful for that crew in my life.
There we go.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone has ever thrown your own questions at you before, but there we go. First for everything, I guess.
Yeah, come on with it. Yeah, I'm with it.
Sweet. So I do want to go back, because one of the things that caught my eye with you and our interactions obviously have been through like social media, which is like crazy world of like these relationships and friendships can be built just from like, seeing a tag on a story.
Yeah.
So we got connected through Luke, which is episode 1 of the podcast, if you guys want to check it out. But so one thing that caught my eye with your stuff is I was like going through, and I always like to like listen to guests, like episodes that they have it, or stalk them on social media a little bit just to get some idea of what to look for. And you've been podcasting since 2016. So like that's crazy to be able to stay consistent for that long. Like even clients that I've talked to is that they struggle to stay consistent for 2 weeks.
Sure.
Much less, whatever that math is, almost 10 years, like 9 years. Yeah. So I guess, how did you get started in podcasting? I know you had a separate podcast before, but just like maybe bring us back to when you started that.
Yeah, so when I first started podcasting, it was not nearly as mainstream as it is now, right? So Joe Rogan was going then. I think Mark Maron had a podcast, and probably a couple others, but not near, like Smartless wasn't around. Dex Shepard didn't have a podcast. Sure. Like, name a person that who you probably listen to. They likely didn't have a podcast then, right? So it was it wasn't new, but it wasn't something that everyone was doing, right? And me and my friend Todd Kate, shout out to Todd Kate. Todd had actually had a boxing podcast, and it was probably a year before that. So definitely I would have never listened to specifically.
Before the Jake Pauls and the YouTubers?
Far before that. Jake Paul would have been in diapers, right? That's how long ago this would have been. So we had kind of toyed with the idea, and I wish that I could remember, but we were looking at Todd's a white guy. I am black. You can see that. Here I am.
Yeah.
We were talking about something, and his take on it was different because he was white and I was black, which that's a thing that happens, right? We all have our lens in which how we view things, and not just race, but personality and experience and all the things. And we were like, what if we did a podcast about that? The name of the podcast was Black Dude, White Dude. Black Dude, White Dude was, it ran for 100 episodes, and man, we had some great conversations. There were tears, there were frustrations, and it went through 2020, and then 2020 just in the United States in regards to race, it was just a lot. So we had almost been kind of gearing up for this time that we didn't know was coming, if you will. So I think a lot of folks tuned in just because they had been hearing us have some pretty straightforward conversation on race.
Sure.
And we got to carry that through. So we collectively decided to part ways, not as friends, but the podcast a few years ago. And then I started doing Pull Up a Chair with Leo Cummings III. Pull Up a Chair is where I have on interesting and motivating guests, and we just talk through their lives, their experiences, what motivates them, all the things. You talk about consistency. Man, it's fun for me. I enjoy doing it, right? If it always felt like work, I don't know that I would still be doing it, but and there's work to it, right? You get it, all the setup and whatnot, but I enjoy doing it. I enjoy getting to meet relative strangers from the jump, right? And then just diving in and getting to know them and their stories, because everybody has a story, right? I mean, it's not always some big harrowing tale, but everyone has a story, and there's something in there that's relatable for someone else.
Mm-hmm. So because you've been doing it for so long, I think other than it not feeling like work, because I'm sure there's been, in that amount of time, there's been times where maybe you didn't want to
100%.
Edit the episode, or you didn't want to do it, but what has kind of kept you through that to just stay consistent?
Man, it's an outlet for me. It's a creative outlet for me. We have a personal trainer, and Luke is that is something that I need physically for me, mentally for me. The podcasting is the same thing, right? It's an outlet for me. And not that I feel like I have the best voice. And when I say voice, I mean, I don't think that there are people just ooh, I hang on every word Leo says, because I don't think that's the case. But it's kind of cathartic for me to be able to talk through, I guess, stuff that I'm thinking, feeling, and honestly just hear other people's struggles and motivations and whatnot, because there's always something that you can take from that, right? Mm-hmm. I don't remember the stat, but have you ever been to the podcast conference? You ever been to
the one here?
No, the big one. So I went to it a few years ago, and I don't remember the stats, but there was something like 3 million podcasts. But
only X amount, or get past episode
5, and then even less than that who would put something out in the last 2 weeks. So despite the fact that there's so many podcasts out there, I think the folks that are consistently doing it, some are getting paid a lot of money, right? And that makes it easy, right? That's not my case, not yet.
Yeah.
But there's a joy for it, and it's selfishly I get something out of it too, right? So monetarily, that'd be great if that was more of that monetarily, right? Sure. But I enjoy the feeling that I get when I'm done. And sometimes, to your point, man, sometimes it's just content. Sometimes it's man, this wasn't my best one, right? And either it was me or the guest or just whatever. But by and large, I feel a lot better after I get to record one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same thing with a workout too. It's if you like you were saying, you woke up a little bit later or whatever, and it's but you still went in and did the workout, you got it done, you probably feel a lot better
100%.
versus not getting it
That's
done.
Right.
So same
That's
thing
right.
with the content.
Yeah.
And you'd mentioned the thing about the money in there. I think that's where, at least what I've seen a lot of people, what they do wrong is they start content with the expectation of making money. Okay. And then what happens is when they don't make money in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 2 months or a year of doing it, it's they don't wait long enough for it to actually come to fruition. That
desire kind of goes away then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they automatically set that expectation of I'm doing this to make money.
Yeah.
And then it's they kind of lose they never had that love for just creating in general,
So it's my time to start making money then, right? I've been enjoying it for so long. Now it's like, okay, let's really start.
I mean, let's talk about that. So like, what have you done up to this point, or like, how are you monetizing? Because I know you have like some of those like slots in the middle.
Yeah, just sponsorships, right? And when Todd and I first started, we would kind of branch out and do 4 or 5 or whatever. Sometimes that would mean they would have a guest on, right? Whatever we could work out between them. And the last has just been a couple of sponsors that were kind of rocking with me from the beginning. And sometimes that was product, sometimes that was cash. We parlay that into some hosting gigs, right? So, and here's the deal, part of it is the effort that I've put into podcasting has not been, it's not been that equivalent effort for sponsorships, right? It just hasn't, because part of my day job is asking people for monetary units, right? So there's a wall there and a line there, and I try not to cross those, but at some point that's going to have to be blurred to a degree for me to do what I want to do. But I think a lot of those sponsorships might not even come from locally if I'm doing it the right way.
Yeah. So what would you say to someone that, because podcasting, I think, obviously it's blown up over the last couple of years, but I think it's just at like the bottom of where it could be, So like, what would you say to someone that like today they're starting a podcast and it could be just words of wisdom in general, like here's how to stay consistent, or like here's how to find guests, just maybe little things that you've picked up along the way to help like a newer podcaster?
Sure. The first one's finding your niche, right? Like finding what you're going to talk about, because you can't be all things for all people, right? And you can get a podcast now or Joe, we talked about Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's kind of all over the place, right? Depending on his guest, they could talk about nuclear physics. They could talk about UFC. They could talk about comedy. That's not something that everyone can do, right? For one, from a skill set perspective, but also just from a knowledge perspective, from a guest perspective, right? So figuring out your niche, right? Making it something that who it is you're talking to, you've got your avatar of who you're trying to talk to, and you know what guests line up with what you're trying to do, right? That's one. And this sounds stupid, but just consistency, like making sure, like having a calendar reminder or whatever. Hey, at this time we're going to farm for guests. At this time, I'm going to make sure that I've got this long allotted to record. And we didn't do this, but like batch recording, right? So recording 3 or 4, right? It can't be, there's one that's got to go out on Wednesday, so I'm recording on Thursday, and now you're up against the gun. So allowing time for you to get it done. So I mean, the biggest thing is just consistency, right? And I think I said this, we talked about Brian Fitton, remembering why you started, right? And if your goal is to make money, okay, then that's still going to be your driving force. But if your goal is to inform or, to have those conversations with people about whatever, then like go back to the origins of why you started that thing. Because if those things are still as strong from the beginning, then that'll make it a lot easier to keep the train going.
Mm-hmm. So on the note of like, outside of like monetary stuff, but just can you maybe name a couple opportunities that have come from the podcasting? Because I think that's important. Like it's from what I've seen, like we've made some money from like, I've started like, that's my problem. I start too many podcasts. I think I have like 10 different podcasts I've started in the last like couple of years. And one thing that I found is like, they might not generate a ton of money up front, but it's like I can then reach out to somebody and be like, hey, I have this podcast. Can we have a conversation? Someone that I would have probably never had a conversation with other than outside of the context of a podcast.
Sure.
Right. So like anything that you can name that you're like, hey, I got this opportunity because I host a podcast.
Yeah. When Todd and I were in the thick of things, we did some hosting things. We hosted the Log Cabin Timbergrat does a best of, and they used to pre-COVID used to do like a big best of gala. We got to host that, and that was fun. Like, we wore tuxes and that whole thing. Like that wasn't something that I ever thought would come from that. And that came directly from that. Hosted Miss UCA pageant a couple times. And these are all gigs that have come directly from that, which I didn't see that as something that I thought would be opportunities. Mm-hmm. I worked with UCA a couple times for doing some speaking engagement. So, I mean, all sorts of, because typically Todd and I played off of each other, right? I didn't know how that would parlay into one, me individually or us collectively hosting stuff, but it's actually worked out pretty well. And it's kind of fun to do. It's much different because I'm not a comedian, right? But I mean, I can run my mouth when need be, as I'm doing right now. So you have to be able to kind of think on your feet. If it's like, okay, we got to stall for another few minutes, or tell a funny story, or what's your kid do today, or something, right? So those have been some very specific, unique opportunities that have come forth that I would have never foreseen when we started recording.
Nice. One thing I want to backtrack to a little bit is when you changed from your original podcast to the one that you're doing, because that one thing, I think a lot of people would they would be like, oh, it's like done now, I need to start over. But you kind of just rebranded and you ran with it. And I think a lot of people will overthink that process of oh, what if the audience leaves, or what if and maybe that did go through your mind a little bit. But so what was that transition period of just all right, let's switch and move forward?
Well, I knew that while we were done, I knew that I wasn't done, right? So I needed to figure out if I wanted to start a whole new feed, right? Or do I, because when we talk about those podcasts that have just kind of been orphaned, right? That, someone did 50 episodes and now it's just...
That's great...
orphaned?
They've been orphaned. Yeah, that's funny.
They just go away, right? Or they're there, but it's like, well, I wanted to keep those, right? And I still wanted to be able to send people to those. So I thought, all right, well, let's just do it. Just rebrand. I mean, the social media, all the things, the feed, everything just changes to the new thing. And right, I am still part of Black Dude, White Dude, right? That is still just as much part of me. So I want to be able to acknowledge that stuff, because I think we had some awesome conversation. It was 100 episodes, right? So I wanted to be able to leave that there, but also have a backfill of that. So, if you do all the pull up a chair episodes, you're like, gosh, is there any more content that involves this guy? It's like, yeah, there's 100 other episodes on that same feed. You just got to go back and dig them. So, and that was not an easy thing, right? Because I talked about trying to I knew kind of who the avatar was with Black Dude, White Dude, and was that going to change? And if so, what does that look like to the folks that were not the avatar who were listening to Black Dude, White Dude? So that was not an easy thing, but literally whiteboard, and that trying to figure out who am I talking to with this, and how is that different than who I was talking to with the other podcast?
Yeah. I think there's a lot to say just in that, as generic and cliche as it is. It's you just have to do it, kind of suck it up. And it's are some people gonna leave? Probably, but you're also like you said, continuing to do the thing that you said that you like doing and enjoy doing, and you weren't done. Right. So, continuing to post on there. So yeah, I think, for anyone that's listening to this, or actually I'll throw this off to you, what, in my opinion, and one of the reasons I want to start this podcast in general was I think business, these types of podcasts, I think is probably the simplest way for businesses to create content. Cause I've worked with a lot of businesses, and if I throw a camera in front of them, a lot of them kind of freeze up and they're I don't know if I should do this. But when it's in this podcast setting, it's a lot easier just because it's a conversation that people usually have. Agreed. So any recommendations you would give to a business that's listening to this in terms of starting a podcast, or any recommendations along those lines?
I mean, starting a podcast is going to be the easiest way, logistically speaking, to help people know who you are, what you're about, your products and services. I think about the access we have now to celebrities via podcast, right? Normally we'd see them for a 8-minute clip on, the Tonight Show. I'm old. The Tonight Show, or Jimmy Kimmel or whatever. And now you're getting these folks who are real people that you're getting for 30, 45 minutes, and you're getting far past the movie that they're trying to promote, right? Or the funny story that they have to tell. And I would say it's the same thing for businesses, right? It's we know, for the most part, the name of your business, we know what you're about. Okay, now, as we know, people do business with people, right? With individuals. So this is an opportunity to tear down any preconceived notions, and they get to know you as the pharmacist, but whatever it is that you do, and the array of services that you have to offer, and why those specific services are beneficial to the consumer. So I think there's just so much information that you can glean from just sitting down and doing this, as opposed to this doesn't feel like we're being sold, right? That we're just having a genuine conversation. And I think when you turn on a commercial, if you even watch commercials anymore, right? Because, either you fast forward or you pay a little bit more to not get them, or they come on and you're like, oh, I'll go to the bathroom, or I'll fix a drink now, right? So something like this is a little more... it's a little more of a friendly way to have a conversation and to hear about a product and service, as opposed to where you feel like you're actually being sold directly from a consumer.
Yeah, it's a big thing that I always tell people of because I think when you write an ad, because I've run a lot of ads, and like there's a time and place for advertising, right? But I think back to your point is consumers, especially as like, for lack of a better word, like consumers age down. It's like a lot of younger people, right? So they're looking to create, like you said, more of like that personal relationship with them, or at least like get to know them a little bit more. And it's just probably the easiest way to do so they don't feel so robotic.
Yeah, that's right.
So touching on the business side, I want to transition to like the chamber. Like,
okay.
how did you become like a part of the chamber? I think you one of the episodes I was listening is I think you started in the sales side and like moved up, or like what was your journey there?
So I started, and I don't even know what my title was when I started there, but I mean, sales is always, I've got a sales background for as long as you've been alive, probably. Okay. I've got a sales background. So sales was always a component of my job. Now my title is Senior VP of Development. And I get to do this, honestly. I get to talk to businesses. I get to help them to see the things that the chamber does and what that money goes to and our vision for the community, and come alongside them and say, okay, here's the stuff that we are doing. Here's your marketing plan. How can we mesh this together for you to maximize your chamber membership, right? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes that looks like financial investment, right? Love what I do. I've built relationships with people in this community that go far beyond like their business. These are like friends in my life that I can call on, and vice versa. And also, it helps me be the plugged into all the things that are going on, right? Obviously, we have an economic development arm of the chamber, the CDC. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. The CDC owns property. The CDC owns buildings in hopes to attract a West Rock or a cold storage place or something like that, right? So not only we're working on the B2B front as far as like the small businesses, but also there's an arm of 900 Oak Street that is actively wooing businesses to this area.
So even just even for me, because this is like my first, I've owned like a lot of online businesses. This is like my first like actual brick and mortar or like in-person business. Maybe someone that's like listening to this, what is even the Chamber of Commerce? Like just the most dumbed down explanation of what the chamber even is.
It's a group of businesses, and every chamber is a bit different. So I want to be very specific on that. But like we are focused on advocacy, education, vision, and I can touch at all these things. We are advocating for small business, and that's starting in DC with the government affairs team that we have, to the downtown corridor, the downtown partnership, to hosting. We have the ability, and this is not a boast, but there's not another entity, business organization that can gather people in this city like we can, right? And with that comes opportunities to market your business, to network, to prospect for customers or business partners, whatever the case may be. And then I mentioned the economic development portion of it too. So it kind of clicks on a lot of different avenues as we're talking about the government piece of it. The visioning piece of it, which that's a partnership we have with the city. The city has adopted our visioning plan, so we are all on the same page as the things we want to see done. More roundabouts, obviously. I
will say that was the one, because I moved here a year ago.
Yeah, that
was one of the first things me and my wife realized. Is like we just drove around like for one day, and I was like, these guys love their roundabouts. It's like every mile.
They are proven to help traffic flow, accidents, all the things. Now the only question mark is, the roundabout's going to roundabout. It's the people, right? That's the issue.
Especially if they've never been here and they're like, do I go in this lane or do I, like, it's just confusing.
And listen, I'm from here, and there are still some that I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm coming from like Sam's and I'm trying to get to that car wash place over there.
that one's rough.
I'm like, I don't know what lane I'm supposed to. I know what I do, but I don't know what lane I'm supposed to be in. But talk about the chamber stuff. That's a great example of our organization seeing what's working in other cities and trying to make it work here. Carmel, Indiana, just outside of Indianapolis. I forget how many, but they have far more roundabouts than we do. We had done a benchmarking trip there. This is prior to my time there. And they found that a way to maximize traffic was those traffic circles, roundabouts, right? Traffic circles. I think that's what Siri says or whatever. So we got that from them. Like the arch we got from Franklin, Tennessee. There are things that we see in other communities, and it's like, okay, this worked there. How can we replicate this here in a way that makes sense for our city?
Really what I wanted just was an overall kind of idea of it, because what I'm thinking this could be is almost like repurposed for you guys, even to like if someone's like, what is the chamber, it's like, hey, just give this clip of Leo, and even just education for me, because it's the first like chamber that I've
you're
been
a chamber member. Welcome to the Chamber of
Commerce.
Commerce.
Of course. Yeah, we were I was gonna meet with what was his name,
Jordan.
Jordan, yeah. I was gonna meet with him, but he was like, well, you're already talking with Leo, so he said you're gonna chat. So so one thing, just on the chamber, just like business in general, like you've I'm sure had the opportunity to talk to like a ton of businesses and around marketing and sales and overall growth. So what would you like give maybe to a business owner that's listening to this as like, here's some tips on like marketing or sales or just things that you've come across that could impact a business for growth?
In regards to the chamber or just in general?
I think just in general. Like, I mean, maybe you can hit both sides of like, what are some tips, and then how could maybe the chamber help with those things?
Honestly, the tip is going to be similar to what I was saying for the podcast, folks. Knowing who your audience is, right? Like knowing who your ideal customer is, I think makes a huge difference, because that's going to drive how you market, where you market, all the things. If you're going to do some networking, like how are you getting involved? Like if realtors is your target market, like what are you doing to get specifically in front of realtors? If you were looking for doctors, what are you doing to get in front of doctors, right? And some of that stuff you could utilize some chamber stuff, but some of that stuff you're going to have to figure out the best golden bullet, if you will, to get to that sect, right? In regards to chamber stuff, there's some stuff we do that I think is great for everyone, right? So Business Expo, regardless of your business, Business Expo makes sense. Ours is marketed as a business-to-business thing. It's not like, this is not a knock on this chamber, but I won't say who it is. But I know another chamber not too far from here that when their Business Expo started, they dropped off a van of senior citizens, right? That's not a bad thing, but that might not necessarily, unless senior citizens is that niche for you, then it's like, well, these are people that are now coming to eat my cookies and taking my pens and all the things that might not equate to anything, right? So knowing who it is you're trying to get in front of, that's the biggest thing, right? And then figuring out, because there are lots of ways now with obviously podcasting, with SEO, there's so much stuff that it's like, how do you even know where to start, right? I mean, I think I would try to trial and error, right? Everything's not going to work, right? And I am much more, I'm not a hunter in per se, but like, I know that I would much rather hunt with like a shotgun, right? If you know exactly what you want, then get that sniper rifle. Boom. But if you're still trying to figure it out, you familiar? Shotgun.
Yeah. Shotgun's a little bit wider approach versus
that's
like
right. That's
just
right.
a one shot.
Yeah. So, and if it's something like, if you're selling cars, that's anyone, right? If it's something a little more niche than that, fine tune that as you're finding out exactly who it is you're trying to target.
No, that's huge. That's one of the first, like if I'm coaching like a business or something, it's like, get clear on who like your client avatar is, ideal client avatar or ideal client. And then you can create strategies from there. Cause like you said, it's gonna be very different based on each one. Yeah. And you even said it earlier too. It's like when you focus on everyone, a lot of times you can't focus on that one person, and you can't focus on their pain points, their desires, like the things that are going to make them become the ultimate, or not the ultimate, the end client at the end of the day. So any big projects of the chamber that that you can speak on coming, obviously we're recording this at the end of chambers, end of 2024. So I guess going into 2025, any big projects?
Here's what I'll say. From an economic development standpoint, we are, in any given time, I'll say courting a potential business entity to come here, right? At the close of this year, I think there's 5 or 6 in the hopper, which is a large number. And if all those were to happen, it would be a significant, we're talking $1 billion investment into this community, and hundreds of potential job opportunities. So I'll say that. That's about as much I can say about that. Sure. But man, just in recapping the year, Clayton Homes, and you're not from here, but like, did you hear anything about Clayton Homes? So on the Dave Ward Drive, across from Walmart out there on Dave Ward Drive, there's set a abandoned building for a number of years. Clayton Homes just recently bought that, is going to fix it up. And again, like, we're talking millions of dollars investment, hundreds of jobs. Like, that is a huge way to end the year. There's a cold storage place that broke ground. West Rock was obviously a big add-in for this year. And we did some cool stuff this year. Do you remember Toad Suck Days?
Yeah.
So part of Toad Suck Days, that money is for education initiatives. Did you know, is this common knowledge? Do you know any of this stuff?
So my actually being next door to the bookstore,
Yeah.
I've heard like some stuff
Okay.
like they've partnered with a lot of education. They get like grants and like helping
Yeah.
the community and stuff.
Okay. So part of that goes to scholarships, right? Just scholarships for Florida County kids. Part of that goes to the Dolly Parton Imagination Library.
Okay.
You familiar with that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. You've got 5 kids, or is it 4 or 5?
4.
4. Okay. So Dolly Parton Imagination Library, that is something that was started by Dolly Parton. It is an opportunity for any parent who's got kids. I think it's 5 and under. You sign them up for free, and you get $2 a month until they age out at 5 years old. Okay.
Nice.
Just because I don't recall the stat, but something about how getting them started reading earlier obviously makes a difference in their learning capabilities. The chamber uses Toad Suck funds to fund that for Faulkner County, right? That's something that the chamber does. There's an old adage in the chamber world that the chamber does things that a lot of people think just happen. And I think that's a great example, right? It's like, I don't know who's funding these books. It's like, is it Dolly? It's not actually Dolly Parton, which we love her and she's great, but she's not the one that's actually doing that. We do some other stuff as far as national merit scholarship stuff. There's a lot of funds. We started a zoo exhibit in the Little Rock Zoo. We have a partnership with Little Rock Zoo. And that'll actually be kicked off, I guess, in the beginning of the year. So lots of stuff we've got going, and we are very excited for. We are full tilt with a lot of events on the books for and dates for 2025, and we are ready.
Let's go.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, there's we definitely have to have you back for maybe an update in like 6
yes,
months
I would love
that. How some of those things are going,
yeah, I would love that.
and where we're going with that. So let's hit these questions. So for those of you that don't know or that haven't listened to Leo's podcast, is he hits 5 questions at the end of every episode with his guests. So I was like, well, let me just, like we did at the beginning, I'm just gonna throw these back at
come on with it.
back at him. So karaoke song, go to karaoke song.
Gangsta's Paradise, Coolio.
Okay.
Do you know that song?
If you sang it, I'd
I will not sing it, but it's that song probably came out, and I don't even know what year you were born, but this is probably before you were born.
95.
Okay, I think it actually came out in 95. I kid you not. 94, 95. It was on the Dangerous Mind soundtrack. So Coolio, Gangsta's Paradise.
Sweet, I'll have to listen because I guess that's my birth anthem. What would you do? What was the first thing you do if you won the lottery?
First thing I would do if I won the lottery, the first thing I would do, I'm trying to think if I would do something like, would I pay off my house, or would I like do something someone would call irrational?
I guess it kind of depends on like how much the lottery was, because it's like you gotta know.
Right. Give me a number. Give me a number. Give me a number.
All right, let's 10 million.
10 million. Okay. Man, if I'm getting 10 million, like the house is going to get paid off real quick, but that might not be the first thing I do.
Yeah.
I think I might get some friends together and say, hey, let's go. We're going to celebrate, right?
Sure.
So we're going to go to.
Oh, so you would let people know that you won?
Okay. No. Hang on. Now they could just listen. I'm not going to say why I'm footing the bill for all this stuff. I'm like, hey, listen, let's go to New York for the weekend. Let's go to Vegas for the weekend. Let's go celebrate. Let's just go have a good time. And if it's like, hey, what's this about? Hey, I just love you guys. Just want to celebrate, right? So I want to
got a bonus at the chamber.
That's right. Yeah. Or no, I've got 50 million followers now on, right?
There you go.
Yeah. So I think I would want to do something fun with a lot of people that I love and care about.
Love it.
Yeah.
So the next one is interesting. Grilled cheese versus taco. So where did that question come from?
You know what's funny is I honestly don't know where I got that from, but when I recorded with someone last, he told me that it was on a movie.
Oh yeah,
Hot Rod.
Yeah.
Brian said it was on Hot Rod. No, I've seen Hot Rod, and I don't know that I knew that movie well enough to get that from them. But if they did it first, then I'll say they did it first. But I don't recall that. Grilled cheese versus taco. Listen, man, I think I've gone back and forth on this, and I legitimately don't remember when I said to Brian. So that's, this is my day on whatever today is. If I'm having grilled cheese, I'm having Texas toast, so those thick pieces. I'm having like 2 or 3 pieces of cheese. I'm having some bacon in there. And I'm just thinking that there's not a taco that's going to mess with that. I'm thinking tacos is going to try to punch, and it's not going to do anything. A couple punches from that big the sourdough buns, and I think that's just it. So I got to go grilled cheese.
Unless back to your point, unless they I'm Mexican, I'm gonna get flack for this because I'm not like, I eat tacos, I'm not like a taco aficionado. Okay. But I've on TikTok over the last couple of months, I've seen like the birria tacos where like they put it, they like basically fry it and it becomes like a hard shell.
Oh,
so that's not gonna. I don't know. You can't.
Okay,
you're not gonna get through that
See,
shell.
no, see, but that's not when I ask people this question, I'm like, envision you picked the taco, you picked the grilled cheese.
Okay.
I would not have thought that taco specifically.
Yeah.
That might be.
I guess it's on your terms.
That might
then.
be like a cage match or something like that. Yeah.
There you go. So what motivates you? And I'm going to challenge you to do, because obviously our families motivate us.
Absolutely.
And I think like a lot of people will put that. So like I'll challenge you to do other than family, but also knowing that's usually the first answer.
All right. Yes, that's definitely the first answer. Okay. My little ones. Okay. So let's get that out of the way. Man, community actually motivates me, right? And I think community in the large and in the small, and in the large, United States. I know that sounds, just follow me here for a second. Like, I think there's so many opportunities and ways to find things that could tear us apart or that make us different. But I think on the flip side of that, there's so much that actually binds us together, that we have in common that we don't often want to think about or talk about or even discover. Right. And when I talk community on this level, like as we are sitting here in Conway, I love this place. And I think that we are a strong and vibrant community. And I want to make a mark, man. I want to leave this community better than I found it. And I think that there's an opportunity to make an impact on this community, Conway, this community, Arkansas, this community, the United States. Right. So, I don't even know that I've found the way in which I'm going to do that, but that is something that I do think about. And you and I talked about some other stuff that I got going, but that may be a way to do it. I don't know, but if not, like, I'm not going to stop trying to find a way to do that.
The intention is everything. Like I talk to so many like businesses or even like family and friends that might have like business ideas or, you know, they want to start a brand or whatever it may be. And like, I just tell them like, do it. Like the opportunity is there. Like you said, like with community and the right people, it's like, and as cliche as it sounds, like with those types of people in the right relationships, like everything is possible. It's just it's the mindset though, like that it can be done. And then the right people that are always in the back of your head that are like, it can be done. Like it's not, you know, too far fetched. Like nothing is.
And that's you didn't ask me this, but like surrounding yourself with those people, you got to have that, right? You've got to have people in your corner who are like, yes, I believe in you. Yes, you can do that. That's a great idea. Do it. How can I support it? How can I help? Because it's real easy to sit back and I cuss a lot in real life. I went on the podcast and crap on people's ideas, right?
Yeah.
But offering no suggestions, no help. It's just like, boom, that's a bad idea. And then you go about your day. And to those of us who are in like creative spaces, it's like, well, that's not helpful at all. So surrounding yourself with those people who get it and who are positive makes all the difference in the world.
Yes, sir. Last thing you did for the first time. It's like, these are your questions. You gotta have them in the back pocket.
I know. Last thing I did for the first time. I'll do a play on this, and something that I did a couple of weeks ago, which was a unique and new experience for me. I love New York. I've been to New York 4 or 5 times. I love the Razorbacks. I love the UCA Bears too. Let me say that. But I love the Razorbacks. I grew up watching the Razorbacks, especially Razorback basketball. On December 10th, and I'm dating this thing, sorry, the Razorbacks played at Madison Square Garden.
Nice.
And I had an opportunity to go to the game. So seeing the Razorbacks play in Madison Square Garden, actually just being in Madison Square Garden for the first time. So that's going to be the last thing I did for the first. That was a unique thing. Excuse me, that I got to do that I've never done before. So that was the last. I'm pretty sure that was the last thing I did for the first time. Yeah.
Did they win?
They did. They did.
Hey,
A great
there you
game.
go.
A great game too. Yeah,
you always gotta love that. My dad, or I guess we like the Broncos, and I swear, like I was like, they're doing better this year. To be honest, I'm not a huge into sports. I just don't have time.
Okay.
But you know, over the last couple of years, I think we've been to like 5 games and we've lost every single one that we like go to.
Stop going.
So yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Actually, I think one of them they did, but it was super close and like it was a good game. But yeah, it's like every time we go, it's just like we're gonna go again. But then like they're doing good this year again, and then you know we'll see. So
hey, just watch them on TV. Don't go.
Yeah,
don't go.
There you go. Well, dude, I mean, I love this episode. I think you know this is like I said the first that like not knowing you in person and then like you know getting together with this. So I think it was a lot of fun, and I would love to have you back on in the next couple of months just to talk about you know what you're working on and working on some stuff that we won't reveal just yet, but I think we can talk a little bit more about that too once you launch. And then yeah, overall, I mean, any last words to the business owners, podcasters that are listening?
Man, the biggest thing is just remembering why you started, right? Like whether it's, and that's applicable, I think, in a podcast, in a business, in a race, in the fitness routine. Like, what is it that, like, at the beginning, were you forced into doing it for health reasons? Were you forced into doing it for whatever reason? But like remembering the reason why you started, like that's coming back to that why is what's going to help drive you to continue to do that.
Mm-hmm. Where can people find you?
Man, I'm on social media. I've got the Pull Up a Chair with Leo Facebook and podcast, and then just Leo the Third, I think, is what it is on Instagram and on Facebook. And apparently there's going to be another one that I'm launching soon because you're telling me I have to have a third. Yeah. I have to have a third. No, I'm kidding.
We'll play it. Well, dude, again, thanks for coming in.
Hey, thanks so much, man. I've enjoyed this for sure.
For sure. So those of you that are listening, of course, all the information will be down in the description on YouTube and then in the show notes on the podcast app. So make sure to check out the YouTubes, the podcast, and go listen to his. I've probably binge listened to 5, probably 6, 7 different podcasts, and all of them were really good around different topics. So check that out down below. This has been episode number 4 of the Voices of Arkansas. We'll see you guys in the next one. Talk soon.
Peace.